and hear stories inspired by this unique neighbourhood. Book your tickets at thedublinlibertiesdistillery.com. Drink responsibly. Visit drinkaware.ie.
The Saturday Panel on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Avantcard. Powered by MasterCard.
You ain't shit! I wish I was 50 years younger and I'd kick your ass.
Well, fans can be the harshest critics, you know.
And they often are.
A wife is often the harshest critic of her husband.
I thought I was invincible. That's what you're trained to believe as a sports person.
There was 4 million people in Ireland who knew much more about managing football teams than I did. When it comes to music, I can spoof at the best.
Your sporting career is the best time you'll have, and you know you have to hang on to it for as long as you like, because everything else is pretty crappy.
And this is not lies. Stephen Rothschild has never spoken to Jimmy McGuinness in his life.
Yes, so very long to this Saturday panel as we look ahead to the All-Ireland Hurling Championship semi-finals this weekend. Kilkenny and Limerick, 6 o'clock throw-in this evening at Croke Park, and the first of those, well, tomorrow afternoon at 3:30, it's Tipperary against Wexford. Leinster champions Wexford, we should say, against Tipperary coming into that game. Joining me now on the panel this afternoon, I have Off the Ball's Hurling Show host Shane Stapleton.
How you doing, Neil?
Taking the side seat today.
Yeah.
We're gonna tap you for the nuggets of information.
Yeah, you go hard on me today. I'm the one usually trying to wheedle information out of others. So yeah,
you don't get to put your opinion across enough.
Yeah,
on the Hurling Show, do you?
You normally have to drag it out of me.
You're quite muted on it.
Yeah, thank you for saying so.
Also as well with us, former Cork and Dublin camogie player Sarah O'Donovan, now involved in coaching. You're part of the Dublin camogie setup this year. How's that gone for you?
Just finished last week. It was an eye-opener, just in terms of how the players get to another level, and when you've no control, you're on the sideline and you're 2 points down and you don't have the ability to go grab a ball and get a score. It's murder.
And has it just kind of completely changed your opinion of coaches down the years, where you might have had an issue with someone and all of a sudden you're kind of going, now that you have that bit of an insight, you're like, you know what? They actually might have been right 5 or 6 years ago.
It's when a player's looking at me with a puss in him, you know, and I'm going, just smile, will you? Like, I'm here to enjoy it, you're here to enjoy it. And I'm thinking of all the times that I gave coaches absolute hell. Why didn't I smile at them? And I might have actually got a better reaction.
And was there a certain element that you were kind of taking care of, or is it just kind of a general I think, backroom team kind of a thing?
Well, it was more the forwards. Because I was a forward and I was used to getting crap ball, I was constantly talking to the managers going, look at the ball she just gave there. Like, transition the play properly. That was my big issue, was the actual play from backs to forwards. Yeah, and you agree.
Aidan Taggy Fogarty with us as well. 5 All-Ireland medals, is it?
8.
8?
Oh
my God.
I don't know who's doing your research.
8 of them.
I grabbed 8 in the end.
Yeah. It is funny, just like that number, because I was talking to a few friends this morning. I'm from Limerick, a few friends coming up this evening for the match today, and one of them had texted, it was just into our WhatsApp group, it was just a screen grab of, I think it was a headline maybe from The Independent this morning or yesterday. It was, I think, a column from Cyril Farrell talking about how, you know, Kilkenny are good enough to win this match. And we were going, is this actually real, that people are saying, you know what, Kilkenny are good enough to beat Limerick?
Yeah.
It just feels absolutely bizarre to kind of see that in writing.
Yeah, it's crazy, yeah. Like, even when I was coming in the car here today and just seeing the traffic coming up, and in my own head during the week I was right, Limerick has all the aspects and all the talent. But then semi-final, Kilkenny, you know, they've been 18 of the last 21 finals, semi-finals, losing I think 2 only. You know, it's going to be a dogged match. It's set up for Kilkenny. They're getting a run on it. Like, and I was thinking then, geez, Kilkenny are going to win this game. You know, just to and fro the whole time.
How are they with the underdog tag in general? Because it's not something they're really used to. I mean, most teams, you're asking what are they going to be like with the favourites tag, because they're just not used to it so much. But Kilkenny, do they like the long grass?
They love it.
Do they?
Yeah, they love it. Yeah. Just in my own experience, like back 2006, underdogs to Cork. Totally built up for that match. We were so driven, just wanted to get a Cork. Then Tipperary, Shane.
Yeah. Remember,
stopped us for driving 5. 2011, underdogs got into that. Just so driven, and Cody loves it because there's no talk about Kilkenny. They're not up in this pinnacle kind of a statue anymore. Like, they're under the radar, and I can guarantee you Cody is in that dressing room and he is just putting fire into them boys there for today.
What is he like in those kind of moments? Is he a shouter? Is it that kind of quiet fear he puts into you?
Yeah, well, it's a bit of both. It's the quiet fear. Like, he doesn't talk to you up to about 2 weeks before the matches. You know, you're just training away, and you just want to know, what is he thinking? Am I playing? Am I going well? And you're walking past him, you're looking for some sort of a word or a pat in the back, you get nothing, and you're just going, Jesus. You know, you just get nothing off him. And then you can feed a build up a week and a half towards the match. He's talking more, and he's in the dressing room a bit more, and I suppose the week leading up then, he gets the players kind of to talk maybe on the Tuesday night, maybe on the Sunday, but then he takes it then from then in, you know, on the Friday night then beforehand, that's when everything is said and just lays on the line. But in fairness, he leaves a lot of it over to the players, you know, but he does take it on, and it's that fear from him, and when he talks, you listen, and he talks sense.
How good a chance do they have today? In short, I mean, we have an hour or so to flesh all this out, but I suppose straight into it.
Oh, I think that they're right up there, like.
Yeah.
As I said, Limerick are coming through, right? They have the 6 week or the 4 week layoff, right? So maybe in the first 10 minutes, Kilkenny are going to have to hit them so hard and put just that fear of doubt into their minds that maybe Limerick are going in at half time saying, we weren't expecting that. Now, Kylie will have them obviously tuned into the last, but I think just put them on the back foot for the first 10 minutes. And obviously, I think our forward line, Kilkenny are coming. I think they're getting to a stage of actually getting their best team together. And I think their forwards are probably the best we've seen this year so far, and they're going to match the Limerick forwards. They're the same kind of a match. It's the Kilkenny backs that I'm fearful of. They're probably not as good as the Limerick backs, but then again, if you just put them on the back foot, the half forward line, stop that half forward line for Limerick, and Kilkenny can go a long way. And if it comes down to a battle, and it's going to be a battle, and Limerick are physically tough as well, but I think it's 50-50, like it really is. I know people are saying 10 points, they're the better hurlers, but semi-finals they're just there for winning, and semi-finals are dangerous because there's so much at stake and there's nothing at stake. You know, you have one eye maybe on the All-Ireland final, and that's what it's all about. But semi-finals are just so dodgy, it's hard to call them. Like,
it's going to be a bloodbath, isn't it? Like this sort of game. Like, could you have, like Brian Cody's teams are always unbelievably physical, in your face. Tackle rate's going to be really high, and basically Limerick are built in their image, albeit with the last season or so they look like they're further down the line. I think, you know, the way in football they talk about blanket defences. I think it's going to be blanket midfields here, and it's going to be how do the 3-on-3s at the opposite end of the field get on, like Hugh Lawler, Paul Murphy and Joey Holden up against Gallan, Casey and Mulcahy. Then the other end of the field, you're like, I mean, if you're to go with how the teams are named, it's going to be Mullen, Colin Fennelly and Richie Hogan up against Casey, Richie English and Sean Finn. So if enough, it just depends on which side enough ball goes into. And like that Kilkenny half back line, 3 really, really good hurlers in Conor Fogarty, Pádraig Walsh and Paddy Deegan, but the height mismatch is pretty big there as well. So I think like that, it's no surprise then at the other end, because that Limerick half back line is so imperious and Tipperary's puckouts were just annihilated in the Munster final, that the way it's set up at the moment, it looks like Wally Walsh and TJ Reid are going to be there with John Donnelly, who has a very good hand as well, and I think that's probably underrated too. So it just screams warfare for me, and I can't wait for the throw in. Imagine that first ball that they're all 50-50 for. It's going to be blood and thunder.
Blood and thunder. And that's the problem with Cork, right? Cork weren't able to raise their game against Kilkenny when they needed to, because they don't have that mindset, that blood and thunder mindset. They're too casual. In the game the last day against Kilkenny, they left 1-4 behind them in the first 15 minutes, right? They were going, oh, this is handy. You know, we're making a dog's dinner of Kilkenny here. And they just assumed that Kilkenny were going to sit back, whereas Kilkenny came out after half time and went, you didn't put us away. You didn't put us away. Now we're in this. We're staying in this. And Cork never had that mentality, and this current team hasn't had that mentality.
They scored 12 of 24 chances in the first half, Cork. They completely left it behind them. And then the start of the second half, I think Kilkenny had 13 of the next 15 shots. I know that's a lot of stats or whatever.
It's 1-8, wasn't it, that they went 1-8 to a point in the second half.
Like, even though it's stats heavy stuff, it really does ram home that Cork were under the cosh. And like you saw that a couple of the half backs for Kilkenny, they sat back in the second half, drew everyone else around midfield and maybe left Richie Hogan, Colin Fennelly up front. But not only were men sitting back, that if Cork did get a ball and they were going to try and knock it into that inside line, not only did they have to hit it over half back line, but they also had to, you know, beat the man inside as well. And the Kilkenny defenders started almost marking from the outside, so that the likes of Alan Cadigan wasn't getting that lovely ball out in the wing that he could wheel into. So I just think that they're coached very well as well, or else they're very smart players. I don't know which it is.
I think though, in that last 20% that you're looking for from a team, Cork don't have that, because that's where you die with your boots on. And I know that's, you know, cliche to say, but the Cork lads were like, yeah, like we've made, like, it's like, I've got the sponsored car, well, what else do I need in Cork, you know? And I genuinely mean that. Yeah, I look, like last year, like I, you know, 6 points up against Limerick and left it behind them.
But the funny thing is, I've spoken to a lot of Limerick fans over the last few weeks, and they are far happier to be playing Kilkenny rather than Cork, just because of the problems Cork have given them over the last year. So even when they didn't beat them, you know, drew last year.
Tipp are disgusted too, because Tipp thought the only chance to win the All-Ireland is if Cork get to the final now.
And that's the worst. That's the mentality. It's like, right, we'll go in against Cork and we'll beat them in the last 20 minutes. But the problems that Cork give Limerick is related to the centre-back position. So Seamus Harnedy steps out into the half-back line and in Limerick, and he doesn't allow the lads a platform to be able to deliver the ball. That's like, it's just literally that step on to the centre-back, onto Declan Hannon, and you cannot deliver a ball.
It's definitely that running game as well. Limerick struggle with that running game. They play the more. They like to play the more traditional style teams and on. Actually, Gallery should say that we were down in Effin playing a practice match, and I was marking Nicky Quaid, centre back. I thought he was his brother. I looked at him going, "Know this fella?" And after the game, then the boys go, "You want Nicky Quaid there?" I was like, "All right, yeah." But after we had a few sandwiches and a few drinks in the pub after, it's kind of a bonding session, and every Limerick person was saying, I hope he beat Cork. We don't want to meet Cork. We prefer meet Kilkenny. And I was like, geez, times have changed. Like,
what's your score off Nicky Quaid?
4 points actually. Yeah, it's happy enough. Yeah.
Do you remember when he first came on the team? Was he corner forward around 9 or 10? Was it that time that the Justin McCarthy strike and all that kind of stuff? Yeah, so he's able to play outfield. Much like Owen Murphy.
He always plays outfield with the club.
He was good in the air. Now I wasn't swinging too much because I knew the man had a semi-final coming up. So even though the boys were telling me to pull fairly hard, but I was letting him catch one or two just in case I did damage to the poor man.
But we were talking about there about like how Cork actually gave Limerick a bit of trouble. Are there enough teams actually just kind of using that as a template even, or are they just, do they not have the personnel or the tools to actually make that work themselves?
Well, Harnedy is a great ball winner, right? So Seamus Harnedy likes to win his own ball, which some forwards struggle to do. So I suppose if you had a Seamus Harnedy in the other teams, and they'd be quite happy to sit on. Yeah.
Because Aidan Walsh's size, he can come down and at least break.
Yeah.
I think, that's what I think Cork are missing in the forward line. They're saying they're the super forward line when they all get going, but I think they're missing a kind of a Bonner Marr or a Conall Fennelly or a lad that can mix it both ways. That doesn't have this sublime touch, but gets his body around, gets the hook in, does the kind of messy work.
You could say Tipp are missing the same thing.
Yeah, Tipp are kind of missing the same thing, yeah. And then even in the Cork backs, they don't have a John Gardner, a bit of cut in them, or Dermot O'Sullivan. Now it's easy to say that. You don't find these players every second.
No, they're not under stones.
You know, so it's hard to get them. But even in forward, I have to laugh like, if that Cork forward line get on fire, they'll strip you asunder. But I still think there's a mix missing.
Yeah, but you're looking at Lehan and the inconsistency of Lehan. Like, so Lehan goes out for Middleton and scores, was it 12 points to win their first county title in years and years and years. And last year, the last day against Kilkenny, he was non-existent. You know, like he breaks your heart because when he's on a spin.
Like, even to hammer home like how good Limerick were that day Cork were against Limerick the first day, and it was Limerick's first day and Cork's second. Lehan went off as he scored a point after 5 minutes, and it didn't bother them. They went on and won the game anyway.
Yeah, but really inconsistent.
To go back to Limerick and Kilkenny meetings, might go back to 2017 first, because I've the teams here in front of me, and it was John Kiley's first year in charge. Limerick had been beaten in Munster, like a first qualifier up, beaten, and all of a sudden summer's over. But when you look at the actual team that was there, like you had the older guys like kind of Nicky Quaid, Declan Hannon, those that have been around from the previous Munster team, but guys that were in their first couple of years: Sean Finn, Mike Casey, Dan Morrissey, who else is there? Cian Lynch, he'd been around a couple of years at that stage, so Garrod Hegarty, Peter Casey, Kyle Hayes was there as well, Tom Morrissey came in off the bench as well. And 2 years down the line, these guys are
practically invincible.
They're practically I
was at Nolan Park for that game. And I remember thinking afterwards, this was a fairly average Kilkenny team at the time. They weren't anything like they were in the previous years before that, and I thought Limerick were gutless enough on the day. I remember there was 3 occasions during the game whereby a ball was coming to a Kilkenny lad, Limerick guy, and he pulled on the ball on the ground in a panic. just because he didn't know what to do, and maybe it's just that pressure that you're under when you're playing in Nolan Park. And afterwards, John Kiley was saying to the press that just it was an unbelievable battle, and I was thinking to myself, you've just left it behind you here. So the fact that they could go from that performance, which I thought was absolutely spineless, to being imperious a year later, I just thought was incredible. But maybe that's the thing whereby you need a year to get your feet under the table.
But are you giving that credit to the likes of Paul Kinnerk?
Well, maybe. I mean, maybe that's a huge part
just in terms of the game
ball
management,
usage, and not panicking on the ball, which they 100% were. Maybe
and they didn't. That day I was down at as well. They didn't really have a strategy themselves. You know, like they played to a total strategy now in the last 2 years, but they just kind of went out and with a mentality of we're looking here to be here. Like they had that game by the scruff of the neck, but just didn't have the belief in themselves.
But they were a different athletic sort of proposition back then, and like. Richie McCarthy's been an excellent fullback for a number of years, and Shane Dowling is still a brilliant player, but they're fullback and full forward. And if you look at the sort of quality of athlete that's all over the field for Limerick now, they're interchangeable. They're all 6'2", 3", and I know the fullback line aren't massive, but they're all really, really athletic. And those two guys are really good players to have, but they're not in the same athletic sphere as the others and what they have right now.
I would have always said, I suppose looking at them, I wondered whether they were going to win All Ireland, because I thought they were missing a link player in the half forward line like a Danny Sutcliffe or a Lehan who was able to come off the shoulder. But what they've done in Cian Lynch is he's a midfielder, but he's also a half forward in the same breath, you know. And it's hard to find that kind of player. Like in Cork, we don't have that player. Like Bill Cooper is not a midfielder and a half forward, whereas Cian is doing both jobs really, really well. So he's actually doing two jobs in one, which I didn't think they actually.
Like you mentioned that as well. I was reading an article today that they're mixing the old with the new, and the likes of Hannon and these guys and Shane Dowling and Quaid, they've all been there, and then they had this new flock of guys, and they've been winning underage, they've been winning minors, they've been winning under 21s. There's a structure down in Limerick now, I think put into structure 12 years ago, that they went into this kind of camp, and it was all S&C coaching and getting the bodies ready and mentality ready, and JB McMahon thinks is involved with it, and now they're getting that, getting the players from that. And
can we bring the Cork lads to that little camp? Yeah.
But what about all these Cork players that were supposedly coming through? Like, you know that great 5 young players that you had a couple of years ago that would include Fitzgibbon, Coleman, Luke Meade, all that kind of crew, and they just haven't really kicked on.
But if you were to put Paul Kinnerk into that Cork setup and actually show the lads how they're supposed to transition the ball to backs to forwards, would that not bring a massive change? Because I genuinely don't think they're being coached properly in Cork. And I think I was on Off the Ball back in May, I think, and I was talking about that full game management piece that I felt that John Myler just didn't have in his armour. It's great to be a manager, but I think you have to look at the whole year and not just games in their own right. And I genuinely feel like Limerick, Tipp, Kilkenny have that full year game plan.
Is there an area, Taggy, that if Kilkenny are to win today, you want to see them properly target Limerick? Is there a weakness there that's there to be exploited?
In Limerick?
Yeah.
There's not a weakness, I suppose, unless you make it a weakness. And I think if for Kilkenny to win it, it's that half-hour line, Hegarty, Morrissey.
Is it that you target the strength, I suppose?
Yeah,
you kind of neutralise that.
I suppose, really. You know, you go at their strengths.
Yeah.
That is their strength. And if Limerick are kind of on the cosh and it's not flowing firm through their own system, have they a plan B? You know, will they panic? I don't think they will panic, but I think that's Kylie's kind of attitude, that he hasn't really grounded and he hasn't really in a good mental state. But I think if you hammer the hammer, go at what they're good at. If you've seen Wexford against Kilkenny in the Leinster final, they went long ball in the end, you know, which is totally, like, you'd always say Kilkenny would dominate in the high aerial ball, but Wexford actually launched ball in towards MacDonald and got change from it. So I think definitely, and Cian Lynch middle of the field, he's like, we're going to have to man mark him, whether it's going to be Conor Brown. I think it's going to be Conor Brown myself, because Lahey's more kind of a free phone up and down the field. Cian Lynch is their link man, you know. Interesting to say what comes in between. Hannon steps back, he looks for the half forwards, he looks for Cian Lynch, and then they spray it in. So I think, you know, you talk about skill wise, you talk about, you know, aerial battles. It's cliche, it's a Kilkenny statement. Look, it's going to be a war, you know, and it's who's going to come out on top of that.
If you're Kilkenny, are you thinking, right, we'd love to isolate Colin Fennelly one-on-one and Mike Casey. Mike Casey was brilliant in the All-Ireland final last year, and Johnny Glynn, but like, Galway put snow on every ball, and as a full back that all you have to do is spoil the full forward. Like, how frustrating is it being inside and just the man is playing you? The ref's not going to change the game by giving a penalty for a sort of a 50-50 one. So if they pop nice ball in front of Colin Fennelly and he turns and goes at you, sure, who's going to stop that greyhound? And the other thing too is, if you could play two sort of either side of the 14, and let's say it was Richie Hogan and Colin Fennelly, and tell Adrian Mullen or John Donnelly, you kind of stand narrow in that area where Declan Hannon is going to be, and choke up the supply there, so that Limerick can't just do those little give and go hand passes to the point where someone is coming out around the 65 and they can look up and pin a ball to Galat.
That's the key. That's the key for any game. It's to stop the supply. Because the forwards are too good. If they get the ball, they're too good. They'll win their own ball, especially with Limerick. And we said it against Cork as well. Couldn't hold Horgan because he was getting nice ball. You have to stop the supply. And to do that, it's our half forward line and midfielders have to get right up on top and make him hit the ball under pressure. And then it's a 50-50 ball then down in the
That's what we were saying about James Harnedy. Like, that's what he did to Hannon. He upset him so much that he actually couldn't deliver the ball, and that's why Cork beat Limerick that day, which was their downfall, because everyone said they had that massive game. And that's probably the most frustrating part of Cork's year, is that they could potentially beat the All-Ireland champions or could be the only team to have beaten them properly,
Last year then, quarter-final, that was another brilliant game in the awful conditions, and replicates as well the absolute, probably even worse conditions of 5 years ago now, that unbelievable semi-final.
That was Croker.
Were you playing that one?
No, I was looking across from the bench and I could barely see Jackie Tiernan in the far corner. I was like, how are these lads playing this game?
Are you sitting there waiting, just praying to God you don't get that call to go for a run down the sideline?
I was told to warm up. I think it was the 55th minute, and I was like, are you serious? I was mad to get on, but conditions were so bad. Your first ball, you want to get a good old touch and get on the ball, and I was dreading just coming on, just slipping or something, But
Richie Power did come on and change that game, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
He came on and won a penalty.
He scored 2 goals,
did Owen Larkin was trying to claim that flick for the goal? Him or was it Power?
Yeah,
but Power won a penalty.
No, it was Power. I think that Power's the changing in that game. Yeah.
That was kind of epic conditions. It just
I remember Dowden scoring one off over his shoulder.
Yeah, remember he threw it up at one hand.
That's the one.
Yes, that's right. That game was just so odd. I was sitting in the press box and the rain coming in sideways, hitting you in the face. There's a huge, there's kind of a semi-roof ahead of you at Croke Park, and you're just getting splattered in the face. And players are trying to drop the ball and hit it, and they're scuttering it along 30 yards. And it was just that sort of game. It became a full-on war. Do you remember one stage a ball went into David Herity and you were like, how is this lad going to even take it down? And it just bobbled off.
Did he take it down?
He definitely kind of took it down.
I'll ask him.
Now, conditions weren't as bad last year for the quarter final, but it was a dirty old day, and was that like the watershed moment for Limerick over the last couple of years, getting that win against Kilkenny in a quarter final?
That's weird, isn't it?
I think so.
Win against Kilkenny Championship since
I think Richie Hogan scored a goal in the 64th minute.
Yeah.
And I looked on and goes, right, here we are, because Kilkenny gets goals at the right time. We had the momentum. Ball's poked out. Tom Morrissey caught it and put it straight over the bar. And I think they scored 1-3 after that. Limerick did.
But not only that, he outran James Maher, who has unbelievable pace.
Very quick.
Ran him up the sideline, threw it over, and it was just like, there's no panic here at all. We know that Kilkenny are going to score a goal, or go ahead at some
Exactly.
stage.
I have a feeling they talked about that actually leading up to it. The Kilkenny are going to get a goal at a certain time, and it's not to break then, and they didn't and that was definitely a turning point, and that put a belief into them as well. I think that they can take down any team then, because that was a Kilkenny team that they'd never beaten for a long time.
Yeah.
And the fact, the manner, the way they did it, Richie Hogan getting the goal and then up and scoring 1-3 after.
I think it's important though to realise how things like the Fitzgibbon have impacted on Limerick, and the guys from Mary, I say, like Keenan, and the way that they've beaten these guys in colleges hurling in February and March, and they're like, right, this is just June, nothing's changed here, lads. It's the same guys wearing the same boots.
The weather's a bit nicer,
the weather's a bit nicer, hopefully, but it's 3 months later. We're both in the same position here. I can win this, and I think colleges hurling has done a lot for Limerick as well, in the last 3 years, just in terms of how they've developed on the field.
If you were a Kilkenny man, would you be worried about how do you stop Galan, but also the pace of Peter Casey and Graham Mulcahy? They're all so tricky, and it's something Tipp really, really struggled with when the ball started coming in wave after wave. But Joey Holden, Paul Murphy and Hugh Lawler, Hugh Lawler was very good on a lot of 50-50 balls against Wexford, did great. But like, if we saw what happened against Cork,
Yeah,
and
and
good
he
ball
was poor
was
under that Horgan goal. He's poor under that high ball that came in. So
but like,
The
is there a
snap pass for the catch
mismatch? Is there a
is class.
mismatch there with two small, fast guys against Paul Murphy, Hugh Lawler, and Joy Holden? None of whom are that small, nippy. Like Cathal Barrett might suit marking those sort of guys.
Yeah,
Who was missing
okay.
from the Munster final? Do Kilkenny have the answer there? And in the first 25 minutes against Cork, 3 times Cody changed who was marking who. Like Pádraig Walsh came back from centre back. So I think Cody is clever that way.
Yeah.
He doesn't stay looking at it. He doesn't repeat the same mistake like I think often happens in Tipperary, for example. But would you not be worried back there if you were a Kilkenny man about those matchups against those
Yeah,
guys?
like look, I think they'd rather see Liam Rush inside there than a small fast guy. Like, and no offense to Liam Rush, but you know what I mean. Those guys are much more dynamic in terms of what they're offering, and that's probably what's the scary thing for a Kilkenny back is the dynamism of these guys.
It is, yeah. It's their pace, and it's like as you said, like you nearly prefer Mark kind of a Mulliker of a full forward.
Oh jeez, I didn't say that about Liam Rush.
Well, no, Dublin got knocked out when Liam Rush wasn't there. To be fair.
We're taking down everyone in this show today.
On to Anthony Nash, I'm only joking about.
But the pace of the full back line of Kilkenny has been tested, and you know that they are struggling with pace. There's no doubt about it. So, like the delivery of the ball to them has to be stopped from out the field, and I'd nearly prefer Paddy Deegan maybe go back on Gillane, you know, because he's nippy, he's tough, he's hard, and he's good in the air. Yeah. So I think Cody will start with his team, but as you say, after 10 minutes, if he sees something, he'll man match him up.
But the Leinster, in the Leinster final as well, you were talking about the puckouts being lumped straight down on top of Kilkenny by Wexford. Did you notice they all kind of folded into a spine, and like Pádraig Walsh was the spare man because Wexford give you a spare man. He was standing on the D. Wexford basically didn't in open play the ball in there, so he became anonymous in the game, even though we know he's up there as Kilkenny's more or less best player. And they folded everyone in, so if you're a spare man and everyone's just in a line, it's very hard to actually make any impact as a sweeper at all. So I don't think that's going to happen because there's not going to be sweeper scenarios this time.
No, it's not, and it's actually something that's coming into the game is that straight line, and then everyone will make a break. Cork do it, you know, Clare did it as well, and it was even at a minor game there 2 weeks ago, and the Clare minor team are doing it as well, just breaking off like that. So it's definitely creeping into the game. But as you said, it's going to be more of a traditional game, I think. You know, this evening. Wexford are Limerick are going to come with their game plan. We all know what their game plan is. Their half forwards drop right back, try to get possession, play the lovely sweet ball in across to the corners, and then they're running in. And they're off the shoulder, like they're off the shoulder running, and their pace, like even when the full forward line are in there, and the hand pass off the shoulder is so dangerous. And Casey and Mulcahy drift out sometimes just to leave Gillane in there on their own, and when they drift out you have the likes of Morrissey tearing in and Keane Lynch tearing in for the overlap.
You know the way you talk about Paul Kinnerk and the fact that the game plan is built around using the ball, the hand passes, all that kind of stuff. Does Cody actually coach you in terms of how you're going to use the ball? Because I don't know, maybe that era where you were there for most of the time it was lump the ball forward with so many ball winners, but did he kind of sit you down and say this is how we're going to work the ball and create space? Like
you're talking about Jim Gavin and Dublin footballers, and you're talking about possession play, and they're saying, right, what's the right choice here? Is it that technical with Cody?
It was coming to that. I suppose towards the end of my era it was coming to that. We always kind of went for the long ball, win your own ball, but like you have to play the game with the players you have.
Okay.
We had Henry Shefflin, we had Gorta, you know, we had Richie Power. These boys are phenomenal in the air.
Does Henry tell you what kind of ball he wants?
Well, we all like this lovely sweet ball that bounces once into the hand. You know, that's the one we want. You know, and we'd be slagging the backs because Paul Murphy would be lumping it there over the Cusick stand.
For these tactics though, where like you've got guys, you know, making the breaks out and kind of targeting all these runs, it's kind of tactical to an extent. You're obviously then putting a lot of kind of faith in your judgment of another player and your relationship with another player and the chemistry you have on the pitch. Like, how difficult is that to forge with someone? You can't just obviously go in and know all of a sudden what your inside forward is going to be doing.
Yeah, well, you hit the nail on the head. It's tactical to an extent, because I suppose in my time in that era, that team, 13 or 14 of that team always played together. So I always knew that Gorta was going to break the ball down in front of him. He's going to touch it or he's going to catch it. And the same with Henry. So I was just shooting across. And you do, over time, you know yourself by playing, you get a kind of a hint of how players play. Like Tommy Welch, if it's going to land on Tommy Welch, he was going to catch it and puck it down to a corner or puck it into the full forward line, but he was going to catch it. And same with JJ, so you knew that he was going to catch it and you were making
so you
a
have
run.
4 seconds to get to the spot where you need to be.
So technically it was tactical. Now it's all changed since, and the players Kilkenny have maybe in the aerial stakes are not probably as good as what we had before. But it was coming into the game, of the short game, the third midfielder, the sweep systems. We came up against it all, and Brian dissects it. There's no doubt about it. He dissects it with his own management team, but he doesn't reflect it onto the players. He might make 1 or 2 changes. Like he definitely gets his man matches right. That he plays Henry maybe on the wing. We put Eddie Brennan and Parg Mar one year, but there's subtle changes. He doesn't overcomplicate it to the players. Now I'm sure behind the scenes he is totally of what's going on, but he doesn't, because if you think too much about their other team's game plan, you forget about your own.
Okay, we're going to take a little break now in just a second. Loads of texts coming in though. Keep them coming on our Facebook Live as well. We are live across Facebook and streaming on Twitter and YouTube as well. But plenty of love for you, Taggy, this afternoon. Lots of fans coming up the road. Hon Taggy, one of the great Kilkenny forwards. Does he think the other forwards will stand up today, not putting all the pressure on TJ? That's from Phil in Johnstown. In a word,
I think they will. I think the forward line are getting better. Richie Hogan is hitting a bit of form. Wally Welch has a bee in his bonnet because he didn't start last night. Come on, scored 3 points. AJ Mullen is the find of the season, maybe in line for a young hurler of the year. So the forwards for Kilkenny are just as good as they've always been all year.
I think Cody might want to call up Taggy because Limerick's defence will be on top of them. Kilkenny forwards today. Up Limerick, that's from Gillian on the M7. Did the lads see Kilkenny's forwards moving around or sticking in their name positions for the match? From Keane in Castlecomer, getting the sandwiches ready for the road up to Croker. Marie, Val, Mark, Avril and Frankie all travelling up to Limerick hurling match. Fair play, Limerick, you're my lady. Some more fans, Geraldine and the rest of the Gleeson gang from Patrick's Well, making our way up to Croker now. Can't wait for it. Come on, Limerick. Kilkenny fans now up the Cats. Joe, Gina and an excited Dara ready to see Kilkenny reach another All-Ireland final, and TJ and Richie will get the job done. Up Kilkenny. That's from Paul in Thomastown. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in a few minutes.
The Saturday Panel on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Avantcard, powered by MasterCard.
Get cash back on your everyday spend with the Avantcard Reward Plus credit card. Avantcard DAC is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
And finally, we end our tour with the Quiffs of Moher. Not too windy today. Perfect way to see the Quiffs in their full majestic volume.
At Volkswagen, to us experiencing the real thing matters. With our master service technicians, you're guaranteed real expertise and 100% genuine parts. And only we can sign our work with the official Volkswagen stamp of approval. Make sure it stays a Volkswagen. Book your classic service online now from €169 at volkswagenservice.ie. Terms and conditions apply.
Sign up to Air and get totally unlimited fibre broadband to enjoy all your gaming, movies and streaming. Plus, you'll get the Air Sport Pack free, the home of the Rugby World Cup in Ireland, and the only place to watch all 48 games live. Switch now and you'll get it all for an incredible $39.99 a month for a whole year. Call 1-800-500-300, go in store or visit air.ie. Air, let's make possible. New customers only, $59.99 a month thereafter, subject to availability. Air Sport Pack channels subject to change. Use of experience may vary. For full details and terms, see air.ie.
If you're an Irish passport holder, the new online passport renewal service is the fastest, easiest and safest way to renew your family's passports from anywhere in the world. The application process is simple, and at just €75 for adults and €25 for children including postage, it's far and away the cheapest way to renew your passport. So save time and renew online. Check in today at dfa.ie/passport online, an initiative of the Government of Ireland.
When you find the right home, you want nothing to get in your way. That's why Lea Life offer mortgage protection in minutes, not weeks. Our fast, straightforward mortgage protection application process is the best way to keep your mortgage moving. No paperwork or medical, just a few simple questions and you're covered in an instant, starting at €2.33 per week. For mortgage protection that's streets ahead, visit lealife.ie or call 1890 907 100.
Insurance provided by iptiQ Life SA. Lea Healthcare Limited, trading as Lea Life and Lea Healthcare, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Discover the Bosch laundry range at Power City. Achieve perfect washing results thanks to the Bosch Intelligent Dosing System IDOS, now with a free 5-year warranty. For more information, go to powercity.ie or call in store today.
Across Ireland on 106 to 108 FM and at newstalk.com. This is News Talk.
Good afternoon, I'm Sharon Lynch. Donald Conway has been re-elected as President of the Football Association of Ireland at its AGM in County Meath. Conway, who was running unopposed, received 134 out of a possible 140 votes. 5 delegates voted against him and 1 abstained. Fianna Fáil spokesperson on sport, Mark Shary, says today's meeting should have been deferred to allow governance issues to be addressed.
It would have been better, perhaps, to defer this AGM, for the Minister to maybe work with Sport Ireland on a month-to-month basis to provide the money to the FAI, pending an overall suite of reforms when we have all of the problems identified from the various 5 reports that remain outstanding.
A man in his 20s has been hospitalised after being stabbed in Dublin overnight. It happened at Hogan Place in the city centre at around 10 to 1 this morning. He was taken to St Vincent's Hospital to be treated for minor injuries. No arrests have been made and investigations are ongoing. Police in the north say a viable device discovered last night is believed to have been part of an attempt to murder police officers. It happened at Craigavon in County Armagh. The PSNI says it believes that it was an attempt by dissident Republican terrorists to murder police officers. A security operation has been launched and is continuing this afternoon. There's been a drop in the number of penalty points issued to drivers in the past 10 years, according to Fianna Fáil. The party says in June 2009 there were more than 790,000 notices issued compared to just over 630,000 this month. Fianna Fáil believes this is down to a decline in the Garda's road policing unit. And the Taoiseach has said a no-deal Brexit could lead to the splitting up of the United Kingdom. Leo Varadkar says he believes people in Northern Ireland will question the Union if there's a hard Brexit that impacts their livelihoods. There's been calls for a wider discussion about what a united Ireland would look like. Leo Varadkar believes those talks are premature.
Having a green paper on Irish unity now or having a forum on Irish unity now would be provocative. And we've always been trying to make the point that what we're trying to achieve with our negotiations on Brexit, with the withdrawal agreement, what we're trying to achieve is just the status quo.
That's it for now. More in an hour.
News Talk weather.
Today will be mainly dry and sunny. A few showers may develop, these most likely in the west and southwest. Highest temperatures of 18 to 22 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
So very welcome back to the Saturday panel. Neil Tracy here with you in the company of Shane Stapleton, Sarah Donovan and Aidan Taggy Fogarty, looking ahead to this weekend's All-Ireland Hurling semi-finals, Limerick and Kilkenny. What was that?
No, you're grand. It's the Taggy. It's the Aidan Taggy.
We'll do an entire Saturday panel next week actually on just GA nicknames.
Sadly.
On it actually.
Sadly, yeah.
Where did Taggy emanate from?
Taggy came from primary school. My brother was called Froggy. Right, I don't know whether he looked like a frog or not. I don't know, but he was called. He was called Froggy. He was called Froggy. He was called Froggy, and I was called Tadpole because I was a younger brother. So thank God Tadpole didn't stick. And Tadpole over the year turned into Taddy, and then just turned into Taggy, and that's how simple that is. Like, it's the most stupidest where it came from, but that's literally it. Tadpole, Taggy. Yeah.
There was a lad down home whose nickname was John Ryan Foot, and when he had a son called Tommy, he became Tommy Toe.
Oh God. More texts anyway. Is Shane alright? I'm surprised he hasn't talked about Tipp the whole time. Yeah, don't worry, we're coming to that in a few minutes. We haven't got to it. We're going one by one. Another message from my cousins on the road up, Connor, Ronan, Sean and Grace, all the Ryans. They're actually living in Clare now. It's gas. These cousins, they're only young. They were Clare fans back in 2013 and they won the All-Ireland. They're living in Mealich, kind of just over the border, and all of a sudden, about 2-3 years ago, the Limerick jerseys came out again. They're die-hard Limerick fans now.
One with the hare and hunted the hound.
Yeah, exactly. Dublin won't know what hits it when the Yellow Belly Army arrives in the capital tomorrow. Davy and the boys have done us proud, and I've no doubt they'll keep our dreams alive, winning a first Liam McCarthy since 1996. And another bit of praise for Aidan Fogarty. I still dream of Taggy in 06 when he destroyed that Cork defence, getting 1-3 up the Cats.
God.
You're fucking on. That's
from Sandra.
I can say listen to this all day.
We'll wrap up on Limerick Kilkenny in a couple of minutes. First though, we were saying that one more bit we want to talk about, the benches, because I think you were saying people have spoken in the last year or so just about how much strength Limerick have coming off the bench and the quality, but you were saying as well, if anything, you actually think Kilkenny have just as good there to come on off the bench?
I wasn't, but the lads were.
Oh, all right.
But like if you look at the last day, and I know Wally Walsh is starting this time, but the last day for Kilkenny, the bench was huge. They got 6 points off it. Wally got 3 of those. Billy Ryan got a couple. Bill Sheehan got one. But he was involved in the play too. Jerry Aylward can come in as a battered ram. Sorry, Liam Blanchfield can. Jerry Aylward on his day, like he could go to town. It's just the finishing doesn't seem to be there for whatever reason. And James Maher has great legs for around the middle as well.
But I'm looking at Shane Dowling, Seamus Flanagan and Darragh O'Donovan, like absolute colossus, last year for Limerick.
Pat Ryan as well.
And now they're sitting on the bench waiting to get in.
Yeah. No, that is true, but like you can't deny there is a decent bit of quality on that Kilkenny bench.
Yeah, no doubt. They made a big impact coming on the last day, as I said.
Well, what were they playing?
That's true.
Cork had shut off. Cork had gone home.
Yeah,
in their sponsored cars.
That's true. And I suppose Bill Ryan and Bill Sheehan,
so
they like that type of hurling. They like that loose kind of play. Limerick won't allow them that. And the Limerick bench, they're battle hardened. They are, and they're a bit of strength coming on. And Shane Dowling is a huge one. You need to give him a jostle coming on and just let noise in the game. And
one thing, Taggy, would you put, because TJ Reid is so good in the air and you want to disrupt that half back line in Limerick, would you put TJ Reid over on Diarmuid Burns so that TJ, who will be catching with his right hand out at the sideline, will have Diarmuid Burns at the wrong side? And he can also, that must be so difficult for a left-hander who's used to marking right-handers. All of a sudden he's up against a guy who can hold you back and catch at the sideline. There is an advantage.
Rather than reaching across that way.
Yeah. I think there is an advantage. Cody will surely look at all those mini
now,
little...
TJ Reid didn't score the last day against Cork. It's probably the only thing.
Still man of the match.
Yeah, well, it's the only thing that Cork managed to do was actually keep him scoreless, right?
But if he was still man of the match, I don't know if they limited his impact.
But does that impact on him then? If he doesn't score, or does he look at the bigger picture?
No, I think TJ has changed. I think when he started out first, he had to score 8 or 9 points. He came on in 2008 at Ireland and scored 5 points just out of nothing really. And TJ always had to score. But the thing with TJ over the years, he's after maturing so much. Like when he came in first, Cody was telling him, work rate. I don't care if he scored 10 points. He wanted work rate out of TJ. And if you look at it now, his game has just totally changed from even 5-10 years ago. He's working so hard that he doesn't want his own plaudits. He's just getting the job done for Kilkenny because now he's turned into a real leader. Right. And look, if you look at Henry over the years as well, his best game was nearly against Galway in that drawn final, and he didn't score either. But he was just a leader on the field. He was winning ball, he was doing the grafting. And you're talking about putting him out in the wing, and I agree, it's definitely easier to come across with the left hand and catch on the right. But then again, you look at Declan Hannon, is he going to sit back in the pocket? And is TJ going to be allowed to roam out to midfield? That's the conundrum. Are they going to man mark TJ? I think Kiley will start off with his own game plan, and if TJ is having too much of an instance on the board, they'll have to shove up on him. But Declan Hannon won't like do that, and that will change the dynamic of Limerick, of how they play. But definitely, I think the forwards in general, though, Kilkenny, they're mixing up a bit as well. They're moving from position to position, like the Limerick lads are doing. They're thinking on their feet, and Brian would always say that. It's not me out there, it's thinking on your feet. Now you have to give Brian has to tell the players they're allowed to do that.
Okay.
So Richie Hogan, you can see him coming out. Adrian Munnell will be coming out. Donnelly will be switching in. Not so often, but they will be switching over. But TJ is a huge influence on the game, scoring or not scoring these days.
So did they lose any confidence from losing to Wexford? How much did that take out of them?
I don't think so. Looking at the Leinster final, for me, I think they took Wexford for granted. They were just lumping high balls down on top of Colin Fennelly, and they were saying they're going to get a goal and put this Wexford team away and we'll be done with them. And that'll be the end of Davy Fitz and we'll have one up on them. And that didn't come to fruition. If you look at the Cork game, they actually came out with a game plan that the two half-backs sat back under 45-50, didn't follow the men totally out the field, and they're putting better ball into our forward line. They're playing it through the lines a little bit better and getting the proper ball in, instead of just lumping it down and losing it and coming out the field, because I definitely underestimated Wexford, but they came up against Cork and they respected them more and did more of a game plan.
Yeah.
On Wexford then, is there any chance Tipp underestimate Wexford tomorrow?
Oh, if they do, it's the biggest mistake of all time. I don't think Tipp will at all.
Could you possibly underestimate them now?
No, you couldn't. Sure, like Tipp struggled to beat the likes of Limerick and Kilkenny the way they set up. I think Wexford are a similar sort of team, really physical, really in your face. They've got serious pace, which Tipp suffer for lack of as well. And I know you're asking me because I'm a Tipperary man. I would be quite fearful of this game as well, because Tipp don't have the pace, and you're thinking about Rory O'Connor running up the centre, Lee Chin running up the centre, Jack O'Connor, Liam McGovern, Diarmuid O'Keefe. That's a lot of pace, and I think that'll trouble Tipp, because again I think you're going to see Wexford absolutely choke up the middle of the field. And I think the Tipp forwards, who are brilliant in space, much like the Cork forwards, you're going to have a situation where it'll be at a minimum 7-on-6 in the Tipperary attacking half of the field, and probably even more players up there as well. So that's a traffic jam, very hard to weave magic in there. At the other end of the field, it could be 4 versus 3 at times as well. And if Wexford get the right ball in, or carry the ball up the field with that pace they have, I mean, Tipp have better hurlers as far as I'm concerned.
They do.
But like, if it's a war, and if it's about pace, and power, Wexford have an edge on that front. That doesn't mean I think they'll win, but Wexford have an edge on that.
Again, the Tipp half back line is their foundation stone, but the Wexford guys are going to have to actually break that line and actually run the ball through that line, because they're not going to win an aerial battle there. So they're literally going to have to run through that line and beat them for pace, because Cork didn't. Cork shot every ball down top of the Tipp half back line and were absolutely cleaned out. So I think that would be a lesson for Wexford immediately, is don't try to go toe to toe in your half back line here with Tipp. You're going to have to actually break that line by running the ball through.
When you see how they've gone over the season as well, obviously there's a few draws thrown in there in the championship, but they haven't lost, and in pretty much every game they've gone through spells where they actually haven't really played that well at various times, but they've just had this knack this season of just staying within arm's reach and just dragging themselves back in. And it's been in the last kind of 10 minutes of every game where they have just got that edge a little bit closer and closer and closer, and they obviously haven't lost a game.
I was in Parnell Park the day they played Dublin and the day they got the draw. Like, it genuinely, I think you guys came to me and I said, right, Wexford have this done and dusted. They're out the gate. Dublin came back, they went up 5 points, and Wexford went, nah, actually we're going to switch this on again, and literally turned it around.
Dublin threw that away a little bit. Like, they gifted 2 goals with defensive mistakes, gifted Wexford the lead. They should have had that, and I know Sean Moran levelled it with a 21-yard free late on, but Dublin had that game for the winning until they threw it back at Wexford.
Yes, but Wexford didn't go away, and that's what you're saying. You know, like, I suppose they've left themselves in lots of games by doing the right thing maybe 30% of the time.
Yeah.
You know, and they're very frustrating to watch, because Lee Chin sometimes sits too far back, and you're saying push on. Like, we need you further up the field. They do tend to sit back and watch the play.
They do, but I think Davy has changed his game plan slightly this year.
Okay.
Definitely they sit back, but before they had Sean Murphy as the sweeper, and he was sweeper. He was not moving up the field. He was allowing the other half-backs move up because he was there. But I think now with Foley, he has latitude to go up and down the field, and I think they're getting to a certain point where they're running the ball out of the fence, but now they're actually playing it into their good forwards.
Yeah.
They're playing it into Conor MacDonald. They're trying to get Rory O'Connor on the ball, and they're trying to get Lee Chin on the ball. And I think if you look at the Leinster final against Galway, was this 2 years ago, they ran out of steam, and I think just
after the half hour,
and I think that was the whole Croke Park thing. It was a warm, clammy day, and the crowd and everything, and they just ran out of steam because of that running game. Croke Park is huge, like, you know, trying to keep it up for 70 minutes is so hard to do.
As the Cork footballers saw the last against Tyrone.
Exactly.
Lord God.
So now they're getting to a certain point, and now they're spraying the ball in. So they're trying to get their best scoring forwards on the ball, which they weren't doing last year and the year before, I feel.
But they're only using, well, in the Leinster final, they probably only used 100 yards of field. So they're going to play that sweeper, and maybe we'll talk about who Tipp will have as the sweeper in this game. But, you know, as I said, Pádraig Walsh, he was marking the D, and they never hit it up into a 2-in-1 scenario whereby Pádraig Walsh can get into the game. So, I mean, James Barry's had a couple of tough games, so they'd probably like to get him isolated on either Conor MacDonald or maybe Rory O'Connor go in there, or maybe Lee Chin. But if they're going to give Tipperary a sweeper, are you going to get enough joy out of that? Are they going to use 100 yards of the field in this, or are they going to try and use the whole lot of it?
Wexford.
Yeah.
I think they're going to try the whole lot of it. You know, they have been mixing it up. Like, against Kilkenny, they went long, and I think they're going to go long again today to the full forward line, because Conor MacDonald's serious in the air. Rory O'Connor, serious man.
Well, like Rory O'Connor, to bring that ball in, like, he did it obviously against Kilkenny, and he got his penalty, right? You know, he took them on, and now he's done it once. It's been effective. He's going to be a different guy today. Or tomorrow, different guy tomorrow. I think confidence-wise, he'll have watched that penalty probably 50 times, going, that's how easy it is to actually turn a game, because that's what happened. Like, they literally turned the game with that.
It is, and it's important. Like, the running game for Wexford, that's where they're probably going to be Tipp. You know, the half back. If you turn the half back line, they're not great at getting back.
No,
they're not great at going forward. As you mentioned already, aerial battle. If they pocket the ball down the half-forward line, they win it all day. But if they break the line and run at this Tipperary defence, I think there's a great chance, and they'll be coming from deep, and they have scorers as well, and it's going to be a battle. And if you look at the Tipperary half-forward line, are they really ball winners when it comes down to it?
No.
You know, they haven't been good the last 3 games as such, really.
None of the forward line like in the first half against Laois, 5 out of 6 forwards were scoreless from play.
And you're talking about Tipp as All-Ireland contenders in the early stages, and I think Sheedy went in maybe this year thinking that, right, we didn't even get out of Munster last year, didn't even qualify for the qualifiers, so he hit the ground running and really went and maybe win a bit of silver in the Munster final. And now the thing is, have they got the legs? Have Tipp got the legs? Because he went back to the old stock of Pádraig Maher, Brendan Maher, you know, Barry at full back. Barry, they tried to drop Barry 2 years ago and they had no full back to come in, so now he's back in the game. So he's gone back to the old dog, and it's whether they have the legs now at this time of year to actually keep into Wexford.
Well, what's changed with Tipp really, like in terms of the things that were going poorly in the number of years since winning the All-Ireland in 2016, midfield was a problem. So Michael Breen was I think he should be tried in the backs and left in the backs, because he's a savage athlete, and I think there's a lot to be got from him. But midfield,
so leave him in the backs?
Yeah, sure. Like, he was an unbelievable under 21 full back. I think he needs to be facing the ball.
Is that Breen?
Michael Breen, yeah. I think full-back's been, just 1 second, like, I think full-back has been an issue for a couple of years, and the full-back line now can be 2 in the full-back line. It's a bit of a fluid position, but you need a savage athlete back there.
Okay.
I think midfield has been an issue for a while as well, and it didn't work out for Breen in the Munster final, and he ended up coming on against Laois, and he was sent off maybe 10 minutes later, and now he's back into the team again. I think there's too much long ball with snow on it to the half-forward line, with the puck outs absolutely annihilated against Limerick, and they didn't really have a plan B for going short, so that meant you just had to keep hitting it long. So I just wonder, will we see in this game a little bit of a change? Like, Laois allowed James Barry to carry every puck out 60 yards, 100 yards if you wanted up the field, and just said, let's see what you can do with it. Have they worked on that in the meantime? Because Barry's starting again today. How is that going to work out?
From that quarter final, like, are you seeing, and even the talk around Tipperary, is it like there's real worry coming out of that quarter final? Are there proper warning signs, or was it one of those days where you kind of play down to the opposition a little? You know, you come to meet them sometimes, and it was just about getting through it really more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, like, there is an element to that, and I'm sure there's a little bit of, no matter what, we're going to win this game. We are, because we have the quality that eventually
that's what Dublin thought.
Yeah, I know, but like Dublin are one of those teams that
Dublin don't like being favourites.
Yeah, they don't really have the guys up front who can cut you asunder.
Yeah.
Whereas Tipp do. Whereas Dublin have the competitors that will put it up to nearly any team and keep into them and sort of drag them into a dogfight as well. And there are a couple of really good hurlers in
like
there.
There was a Nottingham game, Shane, really, wasn't it? Like, and like, if you bet by 30 pints.
But the warning signs,
the favourites, and
the
now
warning signs were still there.
They were, yeah.
What are the warning signs?
Well, getting dragged too far up the field and leaving your backline exposed, which is, it's a recurring theme over the last number of years. Like, watching the fact that they were allowing one of your players to get puck outs, carrying him up the field, it wasn't really suiting his skill set, and you never changed it. That kind of stuff. The fact that Paddy Purcell could constantly run up the middle and you're exposed to pace, and you haven't really changed your team enough to address that sort of thing. One point I'd wonder about is Brendan Maher was the sweeper against Laois, and they never brought him into the game because they didn't puck it into him. Laois used 100 yards of the field again. I think Pádraig Maher is going to be the sweeper in this game, because of all the guys you want on Lee Chin, I think it's Brendan Maher. So I think that's going to be a crucial matchup in this, and this game has to be about matchups. If you're going to win the match, it's going to be down to the matchups. Would you see Brendan Maher, or do you think someone else on him?
I think Brendan Maher on each end, yeah. I think he did very well. Who did Brendan Maher?
Tony Kelly.
Tony Kelly, yeah, did a very good job on him. Pádraig Maher is a sweeper. I'm not so sure.
He did it for most of the year, or he's the spare man, I should say.
He loves being a free man. There's no doubt about it. He loves that loose ball, but I think you still have to give him a job. Still have to have him out on the wing. I think he's too good of a hurler.
I'd rather Ronan Maher as a
free man. Yeah.
It's
a great ball striker.
But it's what Sheedy seems to prefer. Like, when he's had the choice of the two brothers, he's seemed to put Ronan on the wing and Paddy in centre.
It's wrong.
We're talking down Tipp here an awful lot, Shane. So, but Tipp in the semi-final, and if you look at it, I think they're coming in a great position, really. Right, they lost the Munster final badly. didn't perform again Laois, right? But if I was in that dressing room, my God, I'd be like, and the Sheedy factor is huge.
But see, all of these things are spurious non-tangibles. You know, what is this Sheedy factor? I mean, he is a really, really good manager, and you can see the instant impact when he came in this year. But, you know, what I keep hearing from Tipperary people, and even Ryan O'Dwyer, and I drove the boot into him afterwards for saying it, was like he was talking about, I just think that Tipp will, on the day, you know, they'll produce a performance. And this is all I keep hearing. Yeah, but like, where is the tangibles? Like, I keep talking about these warning signs that I see that worry me as a Tipp man who
You're doing all this work and people are dismissing you with
I keep saying
sure, look at
these Wexford lads I keep saying Wexford are going to run up the centre at Tipperary. How do you stop that? And people are like, I think Tipp will just produce performance. Well, what's tangible, like, you know? And that's the thing.
So what impressed, I suppose, me most about Tipp this year was their demolition of Cork, right? But what was that after?
You're windy.
I know, and that's the problem. Like, they haven't. The Sheedy factor hasn't come this year. If you're relying on a Cork game to just suggest that they're back,
it's the fight. It's the intensity, and like you can
rely on it every day. And if your setup is right, you can actually work smarter. Your 100% effort will go so much further because your team is compact. You've got a game plan. You understand what each other are doing. I don't think you can rely on intensity every day because it just won't be at 100% every day.
I could be at a different spectrum. I think you can over-talk tactics, and I think you can overplay and get into the players' minds nearly too much. And this lovely spray ball, if you bring in like when I was looking at Tipperary early in the season, I was saying, right, Cork haven't hit him, Waterford didn't hit him, Limerick the first day turned up and probably had their sights in a Munster final, and next thing they got hit in a Munster final and they were blown out of the water. So like I see your argument, and I think a team obviously have to have a game plan, have to have tactics, but if you don't bring the intensity, them tactics won't work anyway because you won't be on the ball enough of the time. You know, it'll break down, and
but
it's in your
head. Isn't that the prerequisite is the intensity? I mean, like, every conversation is surely through the prism of course you're going to have to work hard here because like you will get destroyed in any sport if you don't work hard.
That's like going into the Laois game. It's like they're literally like, right, we have to work hard, but you know what? I need to keep something in the legs for 2 weeks later. You know, there is that long game that has to be played.
Do you believe in that like you wouldn't be if you gave 100% against Laois, that you wouldn't be 100% ready to go 2 weeks later?
I think there was certainly not. I think they were at 70%.
I think it's the mentality thing.
I
think it was Laois, and look, we're going to get over it. And
and I genuinely don't think they were switched on.
It's a subconscious. It's a subconscious more than actively saying. I'll do 70 to 80% here. That'll be enough.
It can come from the manager as well. That maybe during the week he didn't talk as much, or he didn't put his emphasis as much. He didn't talk tactics as much.
He wasn't thinking about it.
And if that doesn't, and maybe he means to do that because maybe he thinks that we're going to take Laois anyway, and that there's a bigger game ahead. And then because to get up for these games, for the big game, for semi-finals, takes a massive mentally to get up for him, and then to come down off that and get ready for another game. So I often see with maybe Brian's league doesn't talk to us at all. He named the team on Friday night, and he might say one or two things. Championship, total different story. He's talking. You know something big is coming. So I think maybe from the manager's point of view, was Sheedy kind of really building up Laois to be this big, banana skin? I wouldn't think so.
And I suppose that's what's brilliant about Davy Fitz is that he does this every single day with Wexford. That intensity, that crazy, that crazy build-up. How does he have the energy to do it?
Matty Kenny does the same as well. And obviously he's with Dublin this year and I haven't seen what's happening in there, but like every game with Coola over the last number of years, when you're going on the All-Ireland runs, and they are big games because you're at that time of the year when the only thing that's a focus in the GAA world is what's happening in the club scene. And he would actually be building you up every week to take this next opposition seriously. So whoever might be the equivalent of a leash left in that competition, he would be doing whatever he can to sort of build it up. These lads are targeting an ambush. And now for me, and I was sitting on the bench for a nice bit of it, I wouldn't be necessarily thinking, I might as well get that in before you do.
Maybe that's why you were sitting on the bench for us.
Maybe. We're getting a lot of answers here. No, but like, I would be thinking, I don't necessarily buy that. I don't think the other team has said anything particularly offensive in their fairly bland interview there. But he is a guy who's trying to build you up and get the G up and the same level of speech more or less every day, like maybe you're suggesting.
How difficult is it for a coach then to actually to keep doing that and keep going back to that emotional well and bringing things back and not having people going, he said last week was the biggest game we'll ever play, now this week is the biggest game we're ever going to play. Like, how do you keep taking that seriously? Does it take an absolute master to keep
when
doing
you're not
that?
Winning. It's definitely different when you're not winning. So the Dublin Camogie girls this year, we haven't won, right? So that that group of players hasn't won, so every game feels like that. The Cork Camogie girls, different kettle of fish. Like they've had their biggest days. So yes, I would find
you
that
just have
much
to
more
find an
difficult.
angle, don't you? You just have to find something about the other team that you have to sew it into them, or about if you're retaining the title, lads. Teams don't do this. Or if you want to be like, people remember you as a good team if you win one. People remember you maybe as a great team if you win. That sort of thing. You have to find an angle.
Is what Liam Sheedy is going to be saying now just how much hope there is in Wexford and how much they're starting to believe, because we have a few quotes here, like Dermot Ling was on with us earlier in the week. We're confident based on the performances we're eking out, and we're getting out of ourselves much more than where Tipperary are at this moment, he said. Larry O'Gorman talking this week about Wexford finally delivering on potential. So like, there are so many people talking about, you know what, this could be a big chance for Wexford. Does Liam Sheedy just fall back on that old GA manager's favourite of everyone's writing us off here, lads,
100%.
No one's giving us a chance?
Because everyone has come down hard on them ever since the Munster final. And I think Brendan Cummins told me a story once whereby, I can't remember exactly when it was, but there was a time when they had a big defeat, and there was a lot of criticism in the paper, and as they were walking out of the dressing room there was a load of articles sellotaped down onto the ground as well. So I think he would go for that kind of piece whereby, lads, people are absolutely writing you off, and for some people that works. I don't know if that would work, G me up, but I think for some people it does.
I think, like, just even from the point of view, if I was Liam Sheedy, I'd be like, lads, nobody wants you to win this. No, like,
everyone wants the Wexford story.
Yeah, everyone wants the Wexford story. So you have to decide this year. You've been out since November. Why do they deserve it more than you? You know, that's the angle that I'd be looking at, saying nobody actually wants you here, lads. You know, you're actually going to upset everyone. The GA needs Wexford, not you guys, but you decide whether you want to be here.
And it was a Tipp Kilkenny final again.
So we could have the wonderful 90s nostalgia of Limerick Wexford or Tipp Kilkenny.
But it's funny you should mention that. Like, Brian would have said that to us over the years as well, that 31 counties want Kilkenny bet, like, and you just stand for yourself and everyone's against us, and that did motivate us, like, and I'm sure that's what Gavin is saying to the Dublin footballers as well, like, everyone's against them, and that does get a bit of a G up in you, you know.
How did it feel actually for you in that situation, knowing full well that pretty much every time you went out for a big game at Croke Park, that it is only the people wearing black and amber in the crowd
who want
and sitting at home watching it that actually want you to win it?
Yeah, it actually felt good, kind of. Yeah, because
2015, no fans even stayed around to watch you win it. They're all so bored of it.
Like, yeah, there's kind of a defiance.
Are you evil deep down? Is what I'm asking.
Yeah, of course we all are. There's a bite in every one of us, but there was a defiance in us that, like, yeah, we are Kilkenny, and it wasn't a cockiness. It was more kind of a confidence, and we kind of show these lads that we are who we are, and, you know, as you said, winning breeds winning, and we were winning, and that taste of success, you know, the 15 seconds after an All-Ireland final is over, like, you have to, if you could bottle that, like,
it's hard to listen to.
That's what you're going for, really, you know. But like, when lads are against you, like you say, you're trying to get your excuses for other teams. That's when the drive is, you know.
Yeah.
And Davy Fitz then, the Davy factor.
Wouldn't we all love to be Davy Fitz?
Would you?
Full-time hurling job, absolutely.
Running Ireland's fittest family.
Absolutely, yeah. Running Ireland's fittest family.
I bet you love balling at people in a dressing room, would you?
No.
Oh, I'd say you roared the head off yourself.
Actually,
the Dublin Camogie team.
My favourite days this year have been on the sideline and roaring in at the girls. You've 3.5 minutes left in you. Have you in it? You know, that's literally probably my soundbite. Girls, there's 5 minutes left. This is the end of your summer. Yeah, because you know, literally, like, a couple of the girls, I think at half time last week, and I won't name the player, I said, what are you afraid of? And she said, I don't know. And I said, you've been training for 8.5 months. I said, it's going to take you another 9 months to get back here. I said, to this point, to this championship point, tell me you want to do something today. And she went out, she got a goal after a minute and a half. I was delighted.
You do it, Davies. It's all about you.
Yeah, but I don't know. I suppose I'm just wondering what players remember when they're on a championship pitch.
Given as well the style of a manager Davy is and how emotional he is, and the way we've seen how the Wexford fans have reacted in the last couple of years when they've had those big days out, like the first Leinster final in a few years, 2 years ago, when I think there was like about 60 or 70,000 people in Croke Park, and the celebrations of the last term round. Is he just kind of like, as a person, even more so than a coach, the perfect fit for Wexford?
Yeah, and isn't it funny that everyone thought, you know, the Jose Mourinho style of goes in for 3 seasons and that's kind of it, or maybe after the second season people stop listening. But yeah, I mean, you can't deny the impact he's had here, and the fact that if he imagine if he went on to win the All-Ireland. Not only has he already won the Fitzgibbon, he's won a Munster title with Waterford, All-Ireland with Clare, Leinster with Wexford, League with Clare as well. Like, it will be just like a set that nobody else has come near again. So
yeah, and won't. It's very hard to invest in a team. Like having come from Cork and coming into Dublin, you invest in players like as teammates, and you know that yourself coming into Coola. Just how Davy manages to invest in teams so dramatically and then walk away. It's incredibly hard to.
As you said, maybe he's full time at it. You know. To be fair, like, I'm not Davy's biggest fan. To be fair, because I just find a lot of the time, even in his interviews, he says, I made this change that changed the game, you know, and I just don't like them little sound bites, you know. I just think he's about himself a small bit, I think, and, you know, when they lose, they didn't do what I told them to do, kind of thing. Yeah, there is that point. Now, look, in fairness, what he's done for Wexford Hurling, like, I think it started with Liam Dunn. Liam Dunn brought a discipline to Wexford Hurling and got stick over, dropped a lot of guys, you know, that weren't training or were doing whatever, and got a lot of stick over, but brought discipline. And then Davy brought the flamboyancy, and Wexford people loved their hurling. They're like, I was down there during the week, all they could talk about was hurling.
Were they talking about you?
They weren't, unfortunately, but they just loved their hurling. And I think Davy does bring an enthusiasm, and just reading the articles, he's about the person on the field and off the field by the sounds of it. And it's so important that a player off the field is getting looked after as well, especially this day and age. You know, you have social media, you have all these different things, and, you know, negative energy coming from all angles of you. And I think Davy is, it's like John Kiley as well, if you read between the lines, it's about the person off the field. Look after him off the field, and then they'll buy into you. And this group of players are really buying into this Davy Fitz attitude, and they see what's after happening. Like, there's going to be 40,000 Mexicans there tomorrow, and by God, they're going to give it socks. They're going to be a 16th man. So what he's done for Wexford Hurling is no doubt super, you know. But I wouldn't be his biggest fan. But
there are fluctuations in terms of, like, season on season. Do they always perform to the highest? Like, even with Clare, he was there for, was it 5 seasons? And I think 60% of his championship wins were in that one season in 2013.
They were exhausted by the end. The Clare lads were exhausted by the time he left. They needed a new voice by the time he left.
Even Waterford, they went from playing really attractive hurling to, and I know they won Munster in 2010 under him, but to pretty dour hurling. Now maybe there was a changeover in players too, like all those legendary names left. He had them competitive, but they weren't particularly great to watch either as well.
Yeah.
And even Wexford last season was a bit of a, like, they were so poor against Clare in the quarter-final last year.
You wonder about maybe, I don't know what David does in the half-time dressing rooms, but that shouting mentality when you're losing. Clare obviously won the All-Ireland 2013, and the year after struggled a lot, and maybe like getting that battering ram of shouting, and, you know, that same kind of, when you're losing, people lose interest in that. And over a time of a period, if you're getting that 3 or 4 years in a row and you're not winning, people are just going to lose interest in it.
I'll step in here now before Shane gives us his 2013 was a fluke all over again and start another Twitter war.
What, they never backed it up.
Final predictions for today and tomorrow. Shane, you first.
Limerick to win by 1 puck of the ball, and I think Tipp will just produce a performance. No, I'm very worried. I think Tipp will just edge it.
For more calculated reasons other than they'll just produce a performance.
Tipp. Isn't that what you said earlier?
Sarah, what about yourself? What's our All-Ireland final?
Limerick by 4 today, and Seamus Callanan to destroy Wexford tomorrow on his own.
Ooh. And Taggy?
Yeah, head over heart. The odds are definitely with Limerick. But I just feel there's a big game in this Kilkenny team, you know. My head would say Limerick, but I just feel that there's an intensity. There's a semi-final. The forwards are getting better. They're coming at the right time. If they can hold the Limerick forwards, I think Kilkenny could do it on my heart. But I'm going to have to. I'm going to have to give him the nod with my head, I'm afraid.
And
but
tomorrow?
Just barely. Tomorrow, I think the Wexkins can do it. I really do. You know, last year I backed Tipperary in the early stage. I said they're going to come good, you know, their intensity is going to come up. They didn't get out Munster, just let me down. And I just have a feeling maybe with the momentum and the spirit and the drive and the Davy Fitz thing that we talked about, that they could overturn this Tipperary team. Yeah, so I go for a Limerick Wexford on Ireland.
Alright, there's our predictions. You can get the rest of those into us on 53106 by text, or you can tweet us at Off The Ball as well. That's it for the Saturday panel this week. It'll be podcasted a little bit later on, and you'll be able to watch it on our YouTube and Facebook as well. Shane Stapleton, Sarah Donovan and Aidan Taggy Fogarty, thanks a million for joining me this afternoon.
Thanks, Ian.
We'll be back after the break.
Off the Ball on News Talk. Screen Time with John Farty.
This week on Screen Time, I talked to actress Tuppence Middleton about playing Mrs. Thomas Edison opposite Benedict Cumberbatch in The Current War, a movie about electricity. Alison Spittle stops by to talk about her favourite movie and the man behind the man who wanted to fly.
Screen Time.